So you can't find a place to hunt and there's nothing out there on the market? Well, today I'm going to show you how to find an awesome piece of hunting property. You know, almost on a weekly basis, I'm taking calls from buyers right now, and they're all looking for the same thing. They're looking for a property that has a great price, that has excellent hunting, that's close to everything. And I spend 10, 15 minutes on the phone with them, and I come away and I lose their name, I lose their face. And if I didn't take good notes, I lose them altogether. The reason that I do that is because I am so busy, and if you're like me and you're an agent that's selling properties that are desirable, it's difficult to categorize and remember and then call all these buyers that are out in the market looking for a property. So what I usually do is I come back to that person and I talk to them and I say, look, this is what I need you to do. I need you to define very clearly what you're looking for. Be specific. Are you looking for hunting land or farmland? Are you looking for wooded land or open land? Do you need a cabin on it? Do you need buildings? Do you want to bow hunt it? Do you want to rifle hunt it? What's your budget? Are you pre-approved? All these specific things help me as a land specialist agent to remember you as a buyer. If you come at me, how most people do is say, hey, when you find something that's really good and really cheap, it has great hunting, give me a call first, will you? And I have to be honest with them and say, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I cannot keep track of all the people that have asked that very question time and time again. So I kind of put it back in their lap, if you will. I'll ask them to be very specific, define very specifically what you're looking for. And I find that a lot of people just cannot do that. They'll come to me and they'll say, well, I'm looking for great hunting, I'm looking for a great price. If it has a building on it, that's great. And I don't know, I just kind of want to go there and hunt. I don't want to drive too far. And if it's on water, that's good. Or it doesn't have to be on water, but if it's near water, that's good. And I get what they're saying. What they're really saying is, look, I just want a good, recreational property that I can utilize and take my family to. And that's fine. But if you want me to remember you and you want me to recognize that property when I see it, well, then you got to be more specific. So the first bit of advice that I can give you is when you're looking for a piece of property, number one, choose an agent that is dealing with what you're looking for. Most agents out there are residential focused agents. I'm a land specialist agent. I deal with properties like this all the time. So find an agent that is working in the market that you're looking to buy in, and then be very specific in what you're looking for. Write down your own list before you ever call me or that agent, and write out specific things and create a mind's eye picture of what you're looking for, so that that agent, when they're out there and they find that property, they'll know it's the one you've been looking for. If you do that, you're going to be off to the great step. Here's the next step. Once you're on a property, that agent's on a property, they need to know what is valuable and what is not and how it fits your budget. So let's talk about the amenities on a property next. One of the best skills that you can develop when you're looking for a property, especially in a market right now where it's a seller's market and things are moving really fast, is how to recognize an opportunity when you see it. And this is one right here. And what do I see here? Well, as soon as I drove up to this property, the feel, it just felt right. It's within an hour and a half of the Twin Cities. That is key. It's on a quiet dirt road. I personally like gravel or dirt roads because they're not traveled very often. That's key. People that are sportsmen are going to want that quiet area. But when I pulled into this area, into this property, I just looked around and I see a couple things. I see it's a little unkept. Hasn't been mowed for a number of years. There's leaves and sticks and everything. There's things on the roof, debris. It looks like it's been not utilized in a few years, and that's what I think we have here. The owner has this in a trust, and it was her parents, and she's looking to sell this property for a fair price, but she doesn't have a lot of emotional connection to the property. And so when I come up here, I have that in mind, and I look at the condition of this property, and it is fantastic. When you look at the siding is steel. The roof is an asphalt shingle, but a little power washing, some leaf blowing, this is going to look fantastic. So it's got instant appeal, instant equity as soon as you drive up. And those are the types of properties you want to look for. Things that have cosmetic requirements, just some mowing, some leaf blowing, maybe power washing, just general cleanup. If you could find those properties and they're extremely low maintenance like we have here, that is a property that you got to take serious and you got to be ready to move on it. So we're going to talk about that next. When you find these diamonds in the rough, these gems are not going to stay on the market. When this hits the market, it will be gone. But you can increase your odds that you're going to get an accepted offer by doing the following. Now this is about I'm going to say it's about a 30 by 40 foot pole barn, steel pole barn. This adds tremendous appeal to this property. And when I get this on the market, probably this alone right here is going to sell it. This property is going to go so quickly when I get it listed and get it on the MLS and put it out to everybody else, that if you are hoping to ever have a shot at a property like this, you've got to do one of two things. Number one, you got to go talk to your bank and get pre-qualified. Go sit down with them, have a discussion, know what you're looking for, and know how much you can spend when you do get there. It's so key. But even better yet would be a letter of pre-approval, and it's quite different. A letter of pre-approval means you've actually submitted some of the paperwork to the bank, your W-2s, your 1099s, whatever you got, your tax documents. They're going to look at them. They're going to determine what you can lend, what they can lend based on your income, and then you're going to have that letter when you come to me as your agent to submit your offer. If you don't have those things, especially in the market that we're in right now, many people aren't even going to take your offer. They're not going to bother getting involved in you because they know that if they accept your offer, you have 30 to 45 days to kind of get your financing in order, and they're not going to take the time to do that. They're just going to waste too much valuable time in the market. So go out and get that pre-approval letter, have it ready to submit your offer. And when you see a place like this, you got to act fast because it's going to be gone. Okay, let's talk about the land aspect and what I look for when I see property I think it has a lot of value. This property here, first thing I noticed when I rolled up is just the great timber that's here. It's spaced out well. There's some good saw logs that are, I consider those 18 inches or so at breast height or bigger. And I could tell that this has been managed pretty well. And what's happened here, this is in the MFL program. The MFL program in the state of Wisconsin, you may have it in your own state, is a forestry management program. Basically, they have written a plan by a certified plan writer. They put it in the program and they manage the timber. And it's usually a 25 or a 50-year program. And they'll come in and they'll cut that timber on a schedule that a biologist or a forester has written the plan and allowed in conjunction with the owner, they manage the timber. You as the owner hire the logger, you get the revenue from the timber, but you have to follow the schedule. As a benefit of that, they've taken the taxes and almost cut them in half. It's just a great program if you don't mind some government involvement. Not every buyer likes that. Every prospective buyer, when you go to sell it, likes that. Just something to keep in mind, that it could turn off a certain number of people. But for the most part, it's a great program. It manages your timber very well. And it does another thing. We are on a trail here. I don't know if you can see this very well, but there's a trail going down through here. It's been graded, it's in great shape, but it's a little overgrown. An instant equity opportunity exists right here by simply mowing this trail. You can see it looks fairly unkempt, it looks pretty wild. But if I list this property, I'm very likely to come in here for the owner and bring my equipment and mow these trails. If you simply do that, you're going to add $10,000 to $15,000 of value to this property because it's going to look orderly, it's going to look clean, and the accessibility is enhanced. So look for these simple fixes right here. Trails that are unmowed are instant equity. Sometime in the past, the owner came in here and they dug this pond, and I tell you what, water is always a great feature. Anytime that I see water on a property, if it's done well, it really adds to the appeal of a property, even if it's not for fishing. But better yet, if it was, water can be very appealing. I'm going to say this is probably not a great fishing pond, doesn't look very deep, but it does add to some habitat diversity. It adds to the saleability, and because it's diverse, people like to see this. And they've got some wood duck boxes out here, so it's probably some great duck habitat. At the very least, you can hear Lucy running around out here. She's having a blast because she likes to go swimming in these ponds. And for that sense alone, I like water. Come on, buddy. So this section here was actually timbered, and you could see these trees. It's about 15 inches round, some smaller poles, some bigger trees that maybe aren't good valuable trees, split trunks and whatnot. But this is an area where they came in, and they thinned it. And this is a good forestry practice cut here, but I wouldn't say it's so much a good hunting cut. What they've done here is they've spaced out these trees. They've opened up the sky to the sunlight that's now hitting the ground. And from the looks of these stumps, this was done probably 5, maybe 10 years ago. From a forestry perspective, if you're growing timber, they've done a nice job. They've spaced out these trees. They probably took out the more valuable trees. They left some seed trees behind that weren't valuable. And they left some good trees that'll be able to express themselves. From a hunting standpoint, though, this isn't necessarily what I like to see. I like to see them maybe come in here and cut this a little harder and open up some little micro food plots, micro cuts, if you will. They end up being kind of natural food plots because there will be a lot of woody browse like this that pops up. All these little stems here pop up, and they are tremendous deer food. And you can see how this is nipped off and it's growing, and this is all really high protein food. And we've got a lot of it in here, but it would be better if they cut it a little heavier. From a sales perspective, though, let's move on to that. This is exactly what people like to see. It's almost park-like. And when I bring people out, if I was looking at a property from an equity standpoint and comparing that to the price and what I think I could sell it for later on, this is what people like to see. I'm going to be able to come through here on the trails that I mow, show them this timber, tell the story of how it's spaced out, and this is what people like to see. So from a sales standpoint, I'm going to give this a thumbs up. From a hunting aspect, it's not too bad. It could be better. So when you're looking for a property and you go on your first tour, take into account what is on that property as far as cleanup, such as this. This looks like this was, I don't know, an old grain feeder of some sort. And I can see an old tree stand 50 yards away. And my guess is what they did here is they brought this out in the timber, and they were using it to bait deer, maybe bear. But this can be an eyesore, and so when you're walking around properties and you see a bunch of junk laying everywhere, every property has it, start to take into account how much it's going to cost you to clean it up, because aesthetically, when you bring the next buyer in, if you're going to be selling this someday, you're going to want to try to get this stuff cleaned up for the most part. It doesn't mean you have to clean up everything, but having as little junk in the woods as possible. I sold a property a couple years ago to a really good client. He's probably going to be watching this. We affectionately called it the crappy farm, and there was junk everywhere. And because of all the junk, it was a hidden opportunity. He was able to buy that property at a really low price. But over the years, he and his son have come in there and they've taken off tons of trash, piles of tires, garbage, cans, old car parts, everything imaginable. And there's still a lot of stuff in the soil. When we till it up, we're pulling it up and we're getting it wrapped around our rototiller and whatnot. It's a lot of work. But because he did that work, and because he's willing to do that work, that property value has jumped up, and now he's probably got $400, $500, $600 an acre more equity that he had than when he bought it. So walk through the property, make sure you look around, take notice of the junk that's on, because you might want to get that out of there. And if you have to pay somebody to do it, it's going to cost you a little bit. Food plots are an easy way to improve a property, and this is an area on the property that I discovered that definitely a food plot could be put in here. The trees have, for whatever reason, were taken out in this area a little bit heavier than the surrounding area, and it's created almost a natural opening. And for about $1,000 a day, I would say $6,000 tops, you could clear 3 to 5 acres of this type of cover and create a food plot opening. I've done it before in my own properties. And when you do that, if strategically placed, you link them together, it just is a great asset to a property. So look for these natural openings, areas that you don't have to do a lot of cutting, as maybe it's already been done from the logging activity, and think $3,000 to $5,000 a day and a half, 2 days worth of work, and have food plots, a great asset. So I'm walking the northern edge of the property, and this is something that's really key when you're buying property you're going to want to do. Much of the property that I sell is not marked this well, and we do not have a survey. Most of the time when I transfer it for via PID number, property identification number, or PIN, and it's on the taxes. This is a 60-acre parcel. It has one PIN, and that's how we transfer if we do not have a survey. If you can get a survey, that's probably the best way to go, and it's always advisable. But when you walk through the woods and you find markings like this on the tree, you can assume they're close, but they're not always 100% accurate. So as a buyer, what you can do is ask the seller to provide a survey. They may pay for it, or you can negotiate into the deal. At the very least, the property will be transferred via PID number. So when the title work is done, they'll take that number, which identifies this parcel as a geo-reference point, and they'll transfer that ownership. I always advise that you try to get a certified survey map and have them come out and survey at least the corners, if not mark the boundaries. There's different prices to that, and it's all over the place. So the only way to know is to go out and try to find a surveyor to come out and do it for you. The best time to do that, and the lowest cost, is probably going to be in the late fall, winter, or early spring, when they can come in here and they can see. They'll be able to mark, flag, or even paint. So getting a survey is nice, but it's not always mandatory. This here is a tamarack swamp, and a lot of folks don't see the value of having this on the property, but it's a major asset, especially if you're hunting. I would argue that the more swamp on a property, the better the hunting value is going to be. Now, it might not fit your needs and desires of how you want to buy a property or how you want to use it, but I can tell you that at least some wetland, some swamps, some impenetrable wet areas is a key asset for wildlife. There's always bigger bucks on a property. This happens to be a tamarack swamp, and if I got in here, I'm sure there's little humps and ridges inside the swamp here, and that's where the deer like to bed. They're going to stick around the property, they're going to hold them, and it just makes a better hunting property if that's what you're buying. It also makes edge, and these bucks like to cruise this edge, so it's always a good hunting area, and you're not seeing it on the camera. If there's a trail going right through here, and I'll guarantee you if I followed this swamp edge, I'm going to find rubs and scrapes because they always travel through here. So when you see a property, find some wetland if you're looking for a better hunting property. It adds to the diversity, and it adds to the aesthetic value, and it adds to the huntability of that property. This is one of many little micro wetlands that are on this property. If you look at the map, you can see these kind of all over the property, little dots. And that signifies the wet areas, and that's what we have here. It's little, we call it riparian wetland. Some years when it's dry, this is going to dry out. It's not going to be as wet, and in other years, or in the spring, it's going to be wet. A lot of spring peepers, a lot of salamanders, a lot of little mammals that are fantastic food for wildlife, raccoons and deer and bear, just to name a few. So look at the property from the air, look at that map and look for wetlands. And if you work with a guy like me that sells land, I can send you different layers. We could toggle them on and off. So we can look for wetlands, we can look for floodplains, we can look for flowing creeks and rivers. So having that technology tool is fantastic, and that's what this looks like on a map. Well, let's talk a little bit about technology and how you can really put it to your use when you're looking at properties. Now, I use two types of mapping tools that are on my phone, and I have it on my desktop at home. Number one is the MapRight tool, which is the overlays that you're seeing on this video. MapRight is a subscription-based tool, but it's fantastic to take a look at a property, map it, look at all the features and even geo-reference points before I ever come there. If you look at a property and you look at the edge of the property in the form of the tamarack swamp that we looked at, this open timber, these little wetlands, you can actually kind of pre-scout a property before you ever go to it, just get a sense of what you're going to see when you get there. Sometimes you can take a look at the vegetation. You can definitely tell planted row pine versus hardwood forest. Sometimes you can see these clear cuts because they're actually overlays that have that data, and you could key in right in on it and get a good sense of a property, maybe filter them out before you get there, or kind of identify properties that you're going to like and you want to go look at it. Another one that I use is the OnX Hunt app. OnX Hunt app is a similar mapping tool. It has some of the same features with overlays and burn areas and public land and old trails, and it has just a plethora of information. I usually use both of those. I'm tracking my movement through here right now, and I'm laying down a breadcrumb trail on this trail. So number one, I know where I'm at, but number two, I can come back through here if I want to mow these trails and clean them up a little bit. So use these tools, use technology to your benefit. There's way more information out there than you're going to find on Zillow and the MLS. If you work with the right agent, they're going to have these tools because they are invaluable in the woods. So OnX and MapRight, two great technology tools to get used to. Another thing to look at when you're looking at these properties is accessibility. This property happens to have two-side access, two roads. And what's great about this is that right here, there's an entrance trail where they skidded the logs out of the timber. And it's created a natural opening, and it would be a great building site. Well, you could take this property because of the multiple sides, two-side access road, and you could subdivide this property into smaller pieces. So you could take this 60-acre parcel and maybe take 20 and divide it into two 10-acre parcels and sell those at a higher cost per acre metric. A 10-acre parcel might sell for $80,000 to $100,000, whereas the entire property will be, $2,500 versus the $8,000 an acre. So you see how that metric can change. So when you're looking at properties and evaluating for equity and future saleability, look for the ability to subdivide and split. It can really add to the overall investment, and it can really come out in your benefit if you subdivide. Okay, we're back to where we started the video, and I know you've been waiting for this. I have not been inside this yet, and neither has anybody for 7 years. So come along, let's go inside and take a look. Well, here you go. The first view of the cabin. Just a really nice looking little hunting cabin. It's got tongue and groove. It's like a wood burning fireplace to get it heated. Just a nice looking property. Picture of all the bucks that he's killed over the years. Nice view of the kitchen. It's got all the appliances you need. Looks like a propane stove. Here's a secondary bedroom, enough room for one guy, or maybe make it into your scent-free closet. And here's your master bedroom. Then we got a loft up top. Let's go up there and take a look. Looks like there's another bed, maybe room for two up here. One fold-out bed here. View of your trophies on the wall. You could get another bed up here. So I would say this property is probably about 20 by 20, and that makes it about a 400 square foot. Give it another 10 by 15 up there, another 150. So we're talking like less than 700 square feet, but it's a good looking property. It's got everything a guy would want in here. And it's also, looks like we got it plumbed for natural gas or propane lights. So you could turn these on in the winter. We've got backup electricity, uses our primary source. It looks like there's an alarm system right here that went off when I came in. But just a great looking property. I personally love to see the wood burning stove. This is just a great little hunting cabin, and gosh, any guy would love to have this. Okay, well, that's a great looking property. Let's break it down. We're about an hour and a half from the Twin Cities, and this sits on about 60 acres of land that could be subdivided. It's in the MFL closed program. It's got some decent timber, but nothing marketable right now. There's some wetlands spread throughout the property and a nice little pond. Trail systems that could be mowed. There's a pole barn that we showed you, and then we have the cabin, and we're going to say it's about 750 square feet. It's got electric. It looks like it's plumbed, but does not have well or septic, so that's an opportunity in itself. That's going to cost you probably about 10 to 15,000, maybe 20,000 tops if you want to put that in. It all depends on the depth and the service in the area. It's heated with wood, but it's got propane lights and backup electricity. And I'm going to make it a 2-bedroom. So there's got a loft with a sleeping area up top, master bedroom, and maybe a third here, or maybe you can make your bathroom or storage area a little bit bigger. Just a great looking property within that hour and a half maybe 2 hours tops of 20 million people in the Minneapolis area. That's always a plus. I love to see that, and it adds to a lot to the saleability of a property. So that's what you're looking for, folks. When you look for a property, look for low maintenance, maybe cosmetic fixes, just the right size for people to get away. Make sure it's got amenities. If it doesn't, maybe bring it in. If it has internet, that's going to be a plus. Look into that. And then an outbuilding is always a plus. You add this all up, and this is where I come up to. I think this is valued at around $22.50 an acre for 60 acres, which I think it comes to about $186,000. Then the building itself, the cabin, is about $100,000 value on that for 750 square feet and of cabin space. And then the building itself, steel pole barn with electricity, I'm going to put $35,000 value on that. You add all that together, I think that comes up to around $239,000, which is what I believe we're going to be going at for our list price. So there you go, folks. That's how I view a property. That's what I see. That's what I value when I come on. And I hope that's helped you when you're looking for your own piece of American land. Hey, as always, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and you'll like and you'll subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. You've been watching The American Landman.